Welcome to Prepper Nation. I'm the host over here, son, John. Thank y'all very much for being here and doing all of the YouTubey stuff. Thank you for supporting the channel. There's a pinned comment down below almost every day. If, and I underline this, if you want to support the channel, there are plenty of ways to do that, from donating coffee to buying books to whatever, right? Joining Patreon or whatever, but it's not a requirement. Anyway, thank you for being here this morning. And also Kim Landry. Kim Landry, thank you for donating this morning. And she just simply put tea. So I am drinking tea. I'm drinking a K-cup, ma'am, Celestial or something like that, but it is fall themed. Got the cinnamon and stuff like that. So it is piping hot though, and I am drinking tea. So we've got to talk about the famine, the Great Famine, unfortunately. Or I guess we could call it the Great Weekly Famine. Because every week, or maybe every other week, there seems to be a famine afoot here in the United States of America, and all of the panic that goes along with this. And so we're going to get into that. We're going to get into, I don't think there's a famine coming, just to be honest with you, like there hasn't been the last 1,000 times that we've heard that in this community. But I do think there are some weird things coming based on the war that is taking place between Russia and Ukraine. But folks, we need to understand a few things here, okay? Survival is big business. All right, survival food on its own is set to triple. And it's already in the hundreds of millions of dollars, right? The industry. It's set to triple by the year 2032. So people are making bank on survival food. And I'm not dissing survival food. I'm not dissing the people that shill it out for the companies. Do whatever you want. I don't care. That's my whole thing. It's YouTube. It's not your tube. It's not my tube. Everybody can do what everybody wants to do on their own channel. This is what makes YouTube so beautiful, right? But we do need to understand, as consumers or potential consumers for survival food, how do you continue to grow an industry as it pertains to survival food, right? Will you continue to sell it with fear? That's the only way. If the world is sunshine and rainbows, or if people got on here and told the truth and they said, hey man, it's just a matter of inflation, son, it's not really a famine coming, they wouldn't sell a lot of this food. So you constantly hear the word famine because it's scary. I mean, it is. It's scary, especially if you have a family. Nobody wants to watch their family starve to death. So even if you've partaken and you've bought survival food, there's a high likelihood that if the message is delivered properly from an influencer or what have you, a company, that you're going to partake some more and you're going to continue to buy, the survival food. But again, the survival industry as a whole, you're getting into gear and stuff like that. And again, I'm not bashing anybody. You want to buy gear, you buy gear. You know what I'm saying? You want to buy tents and climate bags, be my guest. Buy whatever you want to buy. But the survival industry right now is worth $2.46 billion. There is a reason that so many people are here on YouTube, because again, YouTube, like it or not, is the number one social media platform out there. There's a reason that so many people in this community are working alongside other companies. People are making money off of fear. And just understand that I'm not going to do that over here. Again, that's why I have the support links or whatever. But we're going to break down the famine, the Great Weekly Famine. Okay, so first and foremost, a show of hands. How many people here They're watching, they're listening. How many of you have actually lived through a famine? Because again, we hear about them all the time. There's a famine coming. You got 14 days, son. You better get what you can get. 7 days. Now, I will cede this much. Beginning of the pandemic, the very, very beginning, things were chaotic even here. I didn't know what was going to go down, take place. And I bought up a lot of survival food during that period of time. And then I realized, well, the food's not really running out. It's just going up in cost. And I kind of started pumping the brakes on that. My wife helped me, by the way, pump the brakes on that. But how many have lived through an actual famine? I'm not talking about you going in there and you got a hankering for Fruit Loops. And you go in there and there's no Fruit Loops. There's other cereal, just not Fruit Loops. And you're like, son, this sucks. This is a famine around here. I'm talking about a real famine. How many people have experienced that where you have no food to eat? Where there are no grocery stores open? Do you honestly believe right now, wherever you are, okay? The one exception here is Chicago because it may not be safe, here in a very short period of time for you to get to the grocery store, but everywhere else here in the United States, at least. Are you really in a situation where you can't drive to the grocery store and they have food on the shelves or farmers markets or what have you? Every time I hear we're in the middle of a famine or a famine is coming, I can go to Food City, Food Line, Walmart, whatever, Kroger. Man, they're fully stocked. They got everything that we need. Just costs more, okay? So allow me to start. Believe it or not, we're going to start with the war in Ukraine, or actually the war in Russia right now. I'm going to give you a breakdown of what's going on there and how it's going to affect you here in the United States. It's going to affect you, believe it or not, in a couple of different ways, neither of which are famine. I'm just saying. Okay, so what is going on? So they have a static front line. The Russians have been advancing, albeit very slowly. Bodies have been stacking on both sides. Ukraine trying to figure out, look, they know they're not going to win that static front. So I have to give credit where it's due. Ukraine, masterful move. They hit Russia. They hit Russia toward the north. Russia's, of course, not expecting a counterattack. And now I believe it's 40 miles or so Ukraine is claiming they've taken. They've taken several communities. Russia has had to evacuate, the communities beyond that. They've evacuated over 100,000 people, to my understanding, as they try and figure out what to do about this. Now, you may be asking yourself, John, what does this have to do with famine or lack thereof? What does this have to do with anything, son? We're tired of hearing about Ukraine. We're tired of hearing about Russia. Okay, herein lies the problem. This war continues to escalate incrementally. And that region of the world is literally known as the breadbasket of the world. This is where a large amount of the grains that we have here in the world come from. So what I'm telling you in a roundabout way is, although famine is probably not happening anytime soon here in the United States of America, your grains, your basic staples, your grain foods, they are getting ready to rise a little bit, I think, in price, on top of the food inflation that is already there. I keep seeing the inflation numbers. Oh, inflation's falling down to 2.1, blah, blah, blah. But I've also seen the experts admit food inflation is anywhere between 60 and 100%. So food is a big issue. I mean, it really is. And this is just going to kind of compound with that and add to this. But no, folks, we're not facing a full-blown famine anytime soon. you're just going to notice that your US dollar is going to have even less purchasing power in the grocery stores, especially with fall and winter coming up. Okay. Because not only the static front line that they're fighting on, but also this area that Ukraine has invaded, the Russian territory, which, by the way, hasn't happened since World War II. So there is going to be a response from Russia. Ukraine did this in hopes, I think, that Russia would redeploy its troops from the main front line and kind of alleviate a little pressure there. They haven't done that. They're redeploying from other areas. Eventually, they will probably get, long-range missiles or air superiority, because here's the risk Ukraine is running. I'm not trying to be long-winded about it, but it kind of leads into our second topic here, okay? Ukraine is using its best available units. They're using special forces and things like this. They're using all of the good armor that they have, that the West has sent them. In many ways, it kind of feels like that one last push by the mustache man during World War II to try and break the U.S. supply line. And the war was pretty much over at that point, and it led to the Battle of the Bulge. It kind of feels, it has that desperate feel to it. But Ukraine has been so successful that now they're kind of in trouble with it, because they've taken so much Russian land that they're moving further and further away from their own supply line. And again, how do you counter even really good Western armor? Air power. I have this feeling that Russia's going to use a lot of air power, wipe out what armor is there, and a lot of good Ukrainian units in the process. But let me know what you think on that. But here brings us to our second topic, and how this is going to affect you. So, because Ukraine has had a lot of success, and they've really, really talked this up on mainstream media, they're also adding key phrases, key propagandist phrases in there. I've noticed this. Sliding in a little bit of groundwork here and there and everywhere, sprinkling it in, son. And they're talking about how Ukraine has been so successful because of Western weapons and Western funding, specifically United States funding. And I believe what is happening here, I could be wrong, but I believe what is happening here is they are going to try and send one more mammoth aid package to Z-Man, Zelensky, before Joe Biden leaves office. Because they're talking about it way too much. He's already starting to say, he said this a couple of times now, if we had longer range weapons, we could deal more damage. We could really hurt Russia. So he's asking for longer range missiles and things at this point. But I just see it, man. I see him lining it up. And if that happens, if we see a substantial aid package mailed off in the 11th hour under Joe Biden before he leaves office, I want you to remember where you heard it from. I really do. Because they're playing it out like, man, they're finally taking the fight to Russia, which they are, to be fair. They're finally hitting back. Ukraine looks like they have a chance. It's because of Western hardware. It's because the United States is help funding this war. We need to continue to do it. We need to continue to send more. So how does this affect you again? Number one, I think you're going to be paying more this fall and specifically this winter for grains. You're going to be paying more, in grocery stores than you're already paying. And we're already paying ridiculous amounts, right? And number two, we're going to have to continue to fund a war in Europe. At least one more massive round of funding is coming. I promise you. They're not just accidentally laying these keywords and key phrases in there. They're conditioning people to see funding is good. Funding helps Ukraine take the fight to Russia. Therefore, we need more funding. We need more of your tax money. You could actually see your tax rate go up. I don't know. But isn't it grand, folks? Isn't it just grand that we have to work? We have to pay exorbitant amount of taxes, just tax after tax after tax after tax, that we are struggling to buy food. And we now know that the cost of food is probably going up and our taxes are probably getting sailed away once again. What are your thoughts? What are your comments? Let me know. Take care and God bless.